Today, I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Maggie Grueskin, who is joining us from her home in San Antonio, Texas, while I'm in mine on the east coast of Australia. Maggie, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Maggie, we were just chatting beforehand. I described Maggie as a polymath in healthcare. She is exceedingly gifted at a large number of things, and we'll hear about some of those as we get to talk this morning. Maggie, it's so lovely of you to join. Thank you.
Well, as we say here in Texas, howdy, mate. Good to be here with you, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I don't think you say that in Texas.
I do, because in my heart, I'm a Kiwi gal, so I combine Texas and Kiwi. Howdy, mate.
Actually, since you've raised that, why don't we start there? Tell me about your connection with New Zealand.
Oh my goodness. So when I was in undergraduate college, I had the opportunity to do a one-year study abroad, and New Zealand popped up as one of the countries where I could study, and I had no idea about that country. You know, it was very different from any of the other regular ones. And I said, I think I'll go down there. And it was a life transforming, wonderful experience. Just the heart, the most beautiful people, and I was there to study architecture and economics as well. So I just had the pleasure of spending a whole year in God zone, as they like to call it, down under.
Wonderful. We will revisit architecture and economics a little later in our discussion. Share with me, Maggie, share with me how you became attracted to both lifestyle medicine and positive psychology.
I think it was a combination of interests. I love so many different things, and it was just being open and aware to my own personal learning journey as I was moving and transitioning from my first career as an economic developer, and I was transitioning into the field of wellness and opening my yoga studio in Houston, Texas. And as I was diving into yoga, my students were wanting more and more beyond just the physical wellness. They wanted to really just have a time to sit down and chat. So we got into this creation of mental wellness, and I was not trained in that field. So I said, I wonder where I can learn about that. And I just happened to connect this wonderful book at the same time that I was reading from Viktor Frankl, Dr. Viktor Frankl, who started the field of logotherapy. So Man's Search for Meaning is one of my all-time favorite books. And that began my next level of learning and synthesizing this idea of whole person well-being. So for me, the early stages or early areas of interest for lifestyle medicine began from the world's wisdom traditions, yoga philosophies, the 6 different philosophies from yoga that address similar foundations of well-being, daily habits, identity, how we process thoughts and emotions, and how we take action according to our personalized approach to our wellness journey. But then the deep dive to Viktor Frankl's work in logotherapy really poised me to learn more about the mind, the levels of the mind, and beyond that, an understanding of what are emotions and how emotions can be perhaps the next level of greater understanding of how we connect what we do repeatedly every day. And so that became sort of this beginning of threading, tying the knots together of all these different threads of knowledge. And, lifestyle medicine with the 6 pillars of wellness views wellness as not just one thing, it's the holistic, the whole person approach. So for me, it was just this one grand learning journey at a time. And I heard about lifestyle medicine through my husband's work in Houston. They have a lot of hospitals, so there was a little buzz about it. And, not being a clinician myself, I thought, oh, that's just for physicians. But I was so impressed, and I just was so well received, and such warm welcomes by Susan and all of the people early on in ACLM to welcome anybody, healthcare workers, nurses, coaches,
mhm,
So that's how really I learned first about lifestyle medicine. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized this is really the meeting point, the junction point of
mhm,
what the
mhm,
world really needs,
mhm,
as we move forward in the future of healthcare.
mhm, mhm. You've brought together a vast number of seemingly disparate bodies of knowledge, but in fact probably connected below the level at which we would typically notice.
Mm.
In addition, Maggie, you're trained in logotherapy, which emerged from the work of Viktor Frankl, and trained as a health coach as well.
Yes. Now,
Mm,
the thing with Viktor Frankl is he is not really considered part of the positive psychology so much because it's not so much evidence based. It's more practical application or
mhm,
applied philosophy. And so it dovetails well with the applied philosophy from yoga. But the approach that Viktor Frankl challenged us to use with the wellness of man is to treat a person not as they are,
mhm,
but as they can be.
mhm,
And that is really sort of the premise of positive psychology, looking
mhm,
at what are the potentials in our optimal state of health and
mhm,
well-being. And
mhm,
so we think
mhm,
they're desperate, they're separate aspects. But if you think of a beautiful woven rug, all of the strings are threads of knowledge that
mhm,
come from different parts of our identity. We were talking earlier about our culture, where we come
mhm,
from, everything associated with that, including food, thoughts, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs. They all form the foundation of this sort of rug that we weave together as part of our foundation of how we travel through life. So
mhm, mhm,
for me, it's putting together these different strings of knowledge and wisdom. And then as we tie the knots, we're implementing them
mhm,
into
mhm,
our, what I call
mhm,
our habits, our repeated beingness.
mhm, mhm. And one of the key defining elements I'm hearing in what you're sharing, Maggie, is also the idea of doing this in a context of um, possible futures.
Mm.
In other words, what really it underscores probably my favourite question of all time, which is what might be.
Mm.
So inviting people to consider not necessarily what's here and now, but
Mhm.
what isn't here yet that might be.
Asking
Mm,
questions
mm. Yeah,
is a
absolutely.
missing skill. I think we try to provide solutions, and I think we're in a state where we are changing. We are changing roles. For as a yoga teacher, as an early coach, we are taught to tell people what to do. Fitness
Mhm,
professionals. If you hire a weight trainer, you're going to be told, lift this weight 10 times and do this. We're used to being told what to do, but I think we're now at an era where if we are wanting to achieve behavior change, desired healthy outcomes through sustainable behavior change, it requires a different approach and a different set of tools. And one of which is what you highlighted, this idea of Socratic dialogue, asking the
mhm.
questions
Yeah.
and allowing the client, our students, to struggle and find their own forward movement, their own
Mm.
solutions, or not even solutions, but ways to explore moving forward.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that if we can spend more time on this, that we can honor the struggle to really make it more meaningful as we discover these new why it matters to do these habits.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Maggie, out of all these things you're sharing, imagine we took this bag off your shoulder, the bag that has all this knowledge, all this information, all these skills,
Mm.
all these different ideas that you've collected along your professional journey, and we looked into them, and you were to show me your favourite one for your own health and well-being. What are you pulling out of that bag?
That is so hard. That is not fair. That is just not fair.
Okay, you can have two then.
Okay, okay. One is an early morning walk.
Mhm.
There is something magical about starting the day with an intention that comes before the busyness of work to tap into the core of who we are and to connect with the nature, our outer body, and to remember that we are a part of nature. There is so much wisdom gained by an early morning walk without, headphones or listening to something. And it is one of the lost arts of not being able to find that stillness and listen to our inner voices. So I think that is a gift. So many authors and creative artists have stood by that. The early morning walk is where a lot of solutions come from our internal sources, not our rational logical. So I think that can really boost the way we look at problems in life, challenges, questions, or even just listening and paying attention to the beauty and appreciation of what is working well in life and celebrating the small wins. So all of that can be done by that morning ritual. It transforms my day, absolutely. And the other one, now you're not going to laugh, but I'm going to tell you, it's my joy. It's my joy. But I love the power of tapping into essential oils for part of my self-care. And the more we get into mental wellness, we learn about the power of aroma, the power of the sense of smell, and how it triggers us into looking for what's wrong in the environment. And in a similar way, when we're stressed out all day long, we have the ability to pause and reset that, stress response by as simple as diffusing something or putting something on our wrist. And, taking a break every hour and saying, what's my intention? How do I want to focus and concentrate in the next hour? Oh, and how do I want to have fun? What's the level of energy and vibration that I want to decorate my environment with, that I want to infuse in my mind, that I want the neurochemicals to be released, that forms the cells and tissues in my body. All of that comes from a simple aroma. And so I view it as both a joy and a daily discipline. So I call it a blisscipline.
Blisscipline. Wonderful. We're going to contact the editors of the Oxford Dictionary directly after this and lobby for blisscipline to be in next year's edition.
Do it, but it's not for me. It's Reverend Michael Beckwith, I think. He came up with that term. When we can identify what brings us bliss and make it a part of our daily discipline, then that blisscipline, it puts together the idea of doing that which is also good for us.
Wonderful. And of course, we all have, I think, some experience of exactly what you're talking about, because I'm sure everyone here can recall a time when perhaps you've been somewhere, there's an aroma that's been in the air, which has either simply got your attention in some way, drawn your attention to it, or it's reminded you of something.
Yes.
And it's taken you back to a different time, a different place, something like that. We know, and with my psychologist hat on for a moment, we know from working with people with post-traumatic stress disorder that that scent and aroma can be a very, very powerful trigger for the recurrence of memories, of flashbacks, of distressing thoughts, and so on. So it makes sense that we would be able to harness this in the opposite direction.
It's a powerful tool, and it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie, I've been fascinated for a long time by behavioural economics, and in fact, I'm at a point in my own professional career where I wish that I had studied economics as an undergrad. I wish I'd paid more attention to economics in high school, and I'm doing some catch up now. But I wonder whether you could give us some insight into the links that you see between what you previously did in the world of economics and some of the challenges that we're faced with in healthcare right now.
Oh, what a fantastic question. I love to see things as from a systems perspective. And viewing ourselves as human beings as part of the system of healthcare is a great way to look at all of the different factors that go into both the process and the environment in which this industry and the way we experience how we get healthcare, as well as self-care. So economics, oh my gosh, who wouldn't want to major in economics? You get to play fun charts and colored pencils, and it's just so much fun. Oh, and all the formulas, the derivatives. Oh, be still, my beating heart, right? But the idea of economics is sort of this idea of, if we want to understand a problem, we can't understand the whole thing. So we have to kind of begin to sort of hold steady some factors, and so we hold these factors constant while we look at this one area. And as much as we try to do that, that's kind of how healthcare has been looking at it, right? Kind of addressing healthcare from a sick care perspective, trying to ease the pain and the strain and the symptoms and all of that, which have been phenomenal with the advances in modern medicine. But now we have to recognize the change in both the environment and the context for what is health care truly, and how is it evolving to meet the changing factors. Mm-hmm. So I liken the idea of the advancement of medicine can be greatly, evolved on a battlefield. So I don't know who said it, but ages ago, they said medicine advances with every new war. Because as the power of destruction, just does crazy things to our bodies, we have to learn new techniques, new ways to heal people. So right now, there is no denying that there is a battle. The battlefield is life, and we are in the war of chronic diseases. It's not just here in America. It's not just in a few countries. It's a pandemic of lifestyle. So as we're starting to look at the rising tide of chronic diseases in multiple fashions, we have similar foundational factors that can be easily addressed by holding constant. What are we doing with the food that we're selecting? What are we doing, how we're moving? If we're not moving, we're not allowing our body to come back into its natural state of homeostasis. So understanding the different factors and understanding and honoring how the simple act of living according to nature by healthy foods, natural, not highly processed foods, eating in season, living according to our circadian rhythm, living according to natural seasons, eating according to our body types, if you like. All of these become factors, part of the formula. And so the more we understand and give input to what is true health, and how is it that we can translate this for the everyday person, and to also give them a role in this. What is their role in it? So expanding behavioral economics with healthcare looks at sort of like this vision of a stool. So, healthcare is like this stool with the seat. And so you have the 4 feet. And so one could be the doctor, and then the other one is the patient. A third one could be the prescription, the whatever we're prescribing. And then the other one is the X factor. And this is the opportunity where I think a lot of these new and emerging fields like lifestyle medicine and positive psychology and behavior science are coming together to play, because as the sickness evolves, as the patient moves through their spectrum of from sickness to neutral to thriving, that prescription, that coach or that X factor is going to change. So I feel like economics is a wonderful model to look at as far as how can we be an active participant, both from the healthcare as a provider and as an end user for someone who wants to optimize their own self-care and be a part of the formula.
Wonderful. Maggie, when we were speaking before this, you mentioned your husband also works in the medical and healthcare field. We know that at the moment in particular, but probably also more generally than this, medical practitioners and more broadly healthcare practitioners are really, really struggling with declining levels of mental health, declining levels of physical health, with burnout. Burnout's a popular word. We know, of course, that burnout is not, burnout is to do with structural and systemic factors that essentially make it very, very difficult to maintain your health and well-being, rather than burnout being something that an individual can immediately change or influence themselves. That said, what encouragement from the fields of lifestyle medicine and or positive psychology would you want to give to medical and healthcare professionals? And if I may put a rider here, I'm curious particularly about something small, something that someone listening to this could walk away and start doing straight away.
A takeaway, like a tool. You know, it really is about stillness. The fact that today, our modern way of living, we are consuming so much information, so much input. I think it was once said that we consume more information, more input, more data points in 1 week than our prehistoric ancestors did, you know, in a whole year. And so what this is doing is this is not allowing us to fully be present and to really be able to process or digest everything that's happening in 1 day. And as we live 1 day, we're going to create habits, and that's how we create a life. So if we can get back to the simple art and science of finding stillness, just connecting for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and to find stillness and remember to remember the game that we're playing. You know, what are you here to do? What is the game that you're playing? And just by doing that, I call it staying plugged in. So it is in the finding the stillness, we can then plug back in and remember our source. When you do that, then it can set up the whole day to be this wonderful challenge to be our best. We don't know what's coming up, but we have the attitude and the intention of plugging in and getting ready for the day. I think that can just change the whole trajectory of the day. And if we start our day in a high vibration, high energy level, it can be such a beautiful experience day after day.
Maggie, I love the way your response immediately went. It went to really a meta level to the question. So the question was, what can we do? Your response was, first, think about where you want to be. That's that idea that we talked about earlier. First, think about why and where you're headed, and secondly, consider the possibility of not doing. Rather than doing. It brings to mind that lovely that lovely phrase. I'm sure you're familiar with it too. We often hear people say, "Don't just sit there, do something." And instead, sometimes we might be better saying, "Don't just do something, sit there."
Sit there. It's so true, because we end up just burning ourselves out in the busyness and, you know, not really sure why we're doing it, and losing the own, sort of the own plot in our own story. When we're stuck in the busyness, it's a beautiful freedom when you can honor both being fully on, fully active, participating in life, and equally allowing ourselves to be fully off, because it's in that fully off where we can actually dive into the opposite strengths, you know, and it can be just a world of amazing discoveries of our own skills, untapped skills and strengths, and then to bring those into play. So every day for me is like, just wake up with this curiosity. And first, Cal Newport, I don't know if you've heard of Cal Newport. He wrote a book Yeah, awesome, right? Do the deep work first before you get plugged into the router of life and you're just,
Yeah.
doing the superficial in and out of thinking and doing. So we're here to go deep, to experience life to its fullest. And when we can connect from within and really plug into our why, we really can discover more of that meaning, moment to moment meaning,
Mm-hmm.
which can just create such wonderful high vibrations in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maggie, let's fast forward, some number of years, and let's imagine that there were some international prize that was awarded for contributions to the field of healthcare and medicine. I don't know what we might call such a prize, but let's imagine that it existed, and let's imagine you were a recipient. What would you want to be receiving this for?
Oh my goodness.
What would you love your contribution to be acknowledged as?
Wow, you ask really big questions, Simon. I haven't even begun to, this is the thing, is that I love the idea of a unifying theory of wellness and understanding that it's not just one thing. It's not just an understanding of what leads to wellness, but this recognized, I guess, this acceptance of the fact that we are now beyond an information age and that we now have to embody the wisdom. We now have to move from theory into practice because so much of our life is now going to be lived from the neck up, from the information technology and all of that. So we have to pay more and more attention to the wisdom of our body. So I guess for me, it would be Nobel Prize for the unifying theory of wellness, the creation of a new language of wellness, because, sick care right now is a lot of prescriptions of medicines and focused on sick care. Well, what would happen if we asked the question of all the questions of what's right, what's the potential, and how do we know if you're healthy and well? So it requires new words, it requires new tools, new techniques, and a new collaborative, cross sectoral way of really meeting people where they're at, from both the sick to the neutral to people who want to flourish, recognizing the spectrum of health and that we need to come up with new tools for people to empower themselves along this wonderful journey so that they become their own guru. We're here to really go into this era of self-mastery. So that's what I'm going to be. That's my Nobel Prize. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
What a wonderful what a wonderful place to conclude our conversation, Maggie. An absolute delight to spend this time with you, and a wonderful, wonderful vision for a grand unified theory of wellness at some stage in the future. Podcast listeners, look out for Maggie's name alongside that theory when it's published. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned. Lots more interviews of this type with folks in the fields of lifestyle medicine and positive psychology. Once again, Maggie, it's been an absolute pleasure and delight. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Simon.